Good morning, good people, brothers, sisters, and beautifully defiant siblings in the movement. Welcome to the unapologetic voice of labor, equity, and action. This is CWA Our Power Radio Show, where we amplify the organizers, uplift the everyday workers, and honor the giants whose shoulders we stand on right here on KYOK 1140 AM and 106.5 FM in the heart of Houston, Texas. If you're rolling through H-Town or just fired up anywhere in the world, stream us live at kyokradio.org on the CWA Strong app or catch the replay anytime by searching CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast platform, because this space, this time, it's about us. That's right. It's about us. We're talking union contracts, organizing victories, labor rights, human dignity, fair pay, and bold everyday resistance to injustice in all its forms. So whether you're on the job, in your car, at the kitchen table, or deep in the fight, lean in, honk your horns if you stand with workers, throw a fist up if you know your worth. Joining me today is only one of the fire starters and truth tellers, Mr. David Marshall. Everybody else is around the country doing other things, and they left David and I here at the radio station. So buckle up, beloved, because the power we build together, that power is ours. Let's get into it. Our union voices are ringing in every district from Alaska to Maine, Texas to Minnesota, Canada to Puerto Rico, because we don't play at CWA. The Communication Workers of America invites you to the 2026 National Human Rights Conference happening August 16th through 19th in Atlanta. Join union leaders and activists from across the country as we come together to build power, advance justice, and fight for workers' rights. This year's conference will be held at the beautiful Western Peachtree Plaza, located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. So register at cwahumanrights.com. Again, cwahumanrights.com. Don't miss this opportunity to connect, learn, and organize for a stronger, more just future. And we'll see you in Atlanta. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the Listen Live option. Tune in live every Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for the CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. Up next, we're going to have David Marshall step on in, and we'll be talking about Memorial Day, a holiday we just celebrated. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Errol, and good morning, CWA family. And I hope everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. A lot of times we spend it out on the barbecue pit or on the lake or whatever you like to do. It's a holiday that we associate with picnics and barbecue. But the real meaning of Memorial Day is a solemn federal holiday that was dedicated to mourning and honoring American military personnel that died while serving in the armed forces. It's very distinct on the military holidays. It's a day of remembrance of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. It's often framed as a long weekend, for retail sales and the unofficial start of summer and, like I said earlier, barbecues, but the purpose is rooted in grief, gratitude, and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the key distinctions of the day, of the military appreciation days that we celebrate. Memorial Day, like I said earlier, those were, for the folks that died in the line of duty. Veterans Day, which is in November, celebrates the service of all military veterans, both those living and deceased. Armed Forces Day, which recognizes those currently serving on active duty. And the historical origins behind a lot of this, especially with Memorial Day, goes back to the Civil War. A conflict that claimed hundreds and thousands of lives. You know, the back in May of 1865, a foundational, persecutor was organized by former enslaved black slaves in Charleston, South Carolina. You know, they've zoomed mass graves of Union soldiers at a Confederate prison camp and then gave them burials and held a massive procession to honor that sacrifice. You know, Decoration Day back in 1868, it was a tradition that was formalized as Decoration Day, a designated time to decorate the graves of fallen soldiers with flowers and flags. And then later on that year in May, later, they chose May specifically because flowers across the country would be in full bloom. And so it evolved, into uh, a uniformed Monday Holiday Act, which was in 1971, establishing Memorial Day as the last Monday of May. And this shift created a modern 3-day weekend, which, shifted the public focus towards, leisure and travel. And so, the whole point of bringing this up is how do we honor the true meaning of Memorial Day? You can, I'm not saying that you can't still enjoy your time with loved ones. A lot of us veterans often note that the freedom to gather is exactly what fallen heroes died to protect. But, you can anchor the day in its true meaning with, with doing these practices. Observe the national moment of remembrance. Whatever you're doing for 1 minute, give a moment of silence at 3 p.m. local time. You could visit a cemetery or memorial, place flags or flowers on the graves of fallen service members at a national or local veterans cemetery. You can acknowledge Gold Star families. You have to remember that living families who are looking at an empty chair at a dinner table are also, sacrificing. You can adjust your greetings. Avoid saying Happy Memorial Day as it's a somber day of mourning. Instead of opt in for something like I'm remembering the fallen today, or I'm wishing you a meaningful day of reflection. And if you really would like to engage deeper, I would say try to find a local remembrance ceremony in your area, or discover, some organizations that support Gold Star families.
And David, if you don't mind, before we leave today, or before we go into our next segment, I think we also need to remember something that's very important for many Americans. As you have stated, Memorial Day is not a celebration because, as you said, it's an empty chair at the table. A folded flag in a living room, a photograph that still brings uh, emotions decades later, and even sometimes a voicemail somebody can no longer replay. I mean, there are so many things that could go on, and that happens on this particular day of remembrance. You could have a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, a spouse, a friend who never made it home. And while the nation enjoys the freedoms and the gatherings and the cookouts and the long weekends and everything else, for this day, it is somber, and many families carry grief quietly, and that's why remembrance matters. Not performative remembrance, not social media remembrance, but real remembrance, taking a moment just to slow down, to reflect, and really to honor sacrifice with sincerity and gratitude, because some gave all. Freedom always costs somebody something, and whether we agree or disagree politically, we should never, 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 never become so distracted by the holiday that we forget the humanity behind it. And so I think that as we are talking about Memorial Day, um, when we celebrate this day, if you will, or going back into the day of remembrance, I think we really need to make our focus to remember the fallen. Pray for the union brothers and sisters and family members all over the country that are grieving. Honor the Gold Star families, and really hold the close responsibility of building a nation worthy of the sacrifice. And I think if we just bring that in and bring it in closer to our hearts, uh, I think that the reflection would become a routine for all of us, for many of us, and sacrifice really without honor becomes forgotten. And so that's my 2 cents on that. And I just hope that somebody really takes it in that Memorial Day is really supposed to be for memorializing those individuals who gave all. This has been CWA Our Power Radio, building power, defending rights. And today, we're remembering those who never made it home. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Our Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. All right, guys, here we go again. We're going to be talking about today equality when convenient, gender bias, selective service, and who bears the burden of citizenship. And so today's conversation may be somewhat uncomfortable, and me and David and we're going to do our due diligence on this particular subject right here. And we're going to get into it because this is something that we really need to talk about. And we hope that you guys join in the conversation on our social media pages. The federal government has modernized portions of the selective service registration process. And in simple terms, many young men may now automatically be registered for draft for the draft system through government databases. And that raises a serious question that we kind of talked about a few weeks ago after our debrief. And if women serve in combat, if LGBTQIA plus Americans serve openly, if equality is now the language of modern America, then why does the burden of mandatory registration still primarily fall on men? And even deeper than gender, why does sacrifice in America always seem to land first on the working class families? So David and we're going to be talking about fairness, citizenship, class, labor, equity, equality, and whether America's systems still reflect the realities of modern society. So David, Marshall, come on, let's jump on into this and see what we can do.
I tell you what, you're actually bringing up some stuff that I think is very important to talk about. In this country, when we start talking about sacrifice, it usually means somebody else's child. It's not wealthy families that are making the sacrifice. It's not the political elite. It's not the people with connections and protections. It's usually working class communities, that are expected to carry this burden. Union families, postal workers families, factory workers families, teachers' families, people that are literally surviving, especially in today's economy, paycheck to paycheck.
You are right. I
mean, it's. I literally feel like, and I know this is on another subject. I feel like I'm back in college. I'm going to the gas pump, man, and I'm putting in $10, $20. I'm just trying to make it work because I got this big diesel truck. and it's $160 to fill the tank, and that is just insane to me. But we're feeling it, and we're the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are always asked to step up. And that's why I think this conversation matters, because the
Mm-hmm.
selective service isn't just a military issue. It to me, it's a labor issue. It's a class issue. Who gets sent, and then inevitably who profits from it. Who comes home traumatized. You know,
Right, right.
I mean, and then do we take care of them when they come back? You know, or do they ever come back at all? And to me, if equality is the true standard that America claims to believe in, then the obligations connected to citizenship should also be discussed honestly as well. So, either everybody shares the responsibility, or maybe we need to rethink this system entirely, because selective sacrifice to me isn't justice.
And David, since we're talking about this, it's a contradiction people are really are wrestling with right now. Historically, society operated under the assumption men fight, women support.
What
And I really believe that that was structured. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and that could be further from the truth. We,
Right.
we we have so many instances going back to even the Civil War, where folks, women like Harriet Tubman, fought in regiments. I mean, that's just been a misconception that is good for storytelling, but just not accurate.
Right, right. Because women served in the military probably at its conception. We just don't
Yeah.
know about it because of history or because people did not record it. But we know that women now serve throughout the military. Uh, Combat restrictions changed years ago. LGBTQIA plus Americans openly serve. So now the system feels caught between two eras. You got modern equality, old frameworks, and younger generations notice that inconsistency, and they're asking, is citizenship equal? Why isn't responsibility equal also? Or better yet, let me put it this way: why are we still talking about draft systems at all in 2026? David, do you think this debate is really about equality, or is it about America not wanting to fully confront what equality actually requires? And I know that's a deep, deep
Well,
question right
and
there, because we're about to open up a can of worms
Well,
on
and,
that one.
and, and it's okay, because I got a can opener, and it needs to be open. We at a point in this in my lifetime where I we've got to confront some hard truths. And to
Yes.
answer your question, I think it's both. I think a lot of people love equality in theory. You know,
Mm.
we love it when we hear it in speeches. Equality in branding campaigns. We love equality when it benefits us personally, but when equality is tied to an obligation, now suddenly people get uncomfortable.
And now,
And
if my kid was here, she would interrupt you and go a
well,
little bit deeper
and
right there.
and and
But
we would
but
have
this
a
just us today.
well, and the thing is, we would have an example
Right.
of how that works in real time. But
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think this has been, America has always had a complicated relationship with who carries sacrifice, and
Hmm.
it's one of those things that I just think that you if you go back and you reflect on your lifetime, you'll see that in your life, those are the people that always seem to have to carry that burden. Working people fight wars.
Yes. Yes.
Working people build after disasters. Working people keep society functioning. And
Hmm.
all the while, big corporations keep making profits no matter who gets deployed. So it don't
Hmm.
matter whose kid is going nowhere, the companies are still making their bank. And
Right.
another thing, you know, today, young people are already overwhelmed. I mean, I couldn't tell you uh, the respect I have for a youngster now that is just you know either graduating high school or graduating college. The amount of student debt, the how much housing cost, you know, the mental health struggles, because these children had to go through a pandemic, you know, that had to
Yes.
go through
Hmm.
COVID-19, that they did it at a young age. We don't even know the mental health struggles that they're
Hmm.
struggling with from that kind of stuff. And then on
And
top
can
of
I
that,
jump right?
yeah,
Can I
yeah,
jump in right here?
yeah.
And this, I think, David, this is why they don't mind quitting jobs either and moving on, because it is their mental health and their peace that they are protecting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And like I said, I have the utmost respect for that generation for even coping with it. You know, we
Hmm.
put them in an impossible situation, like I said, with debt, with housing costs, with healthcare expenses, but they're also having to try to save the planet that we messed up for them. You know, they're
Hmm.
trying to conserve and go back and fix all the things that we destroyed, and they want to make sure that you know they inherit a planet that's habitable. You know, so imagine telling them, you know, coming up to them and say, hey, with all that stuff going on, you're now going to be tied to a draft system
Hmm.
where the rules uh, many people themselves don't even fully agree with. I,
And David, one of the other things that I want to bring out right here is they're doing this all off of $7.25 an hour or $15 an hour, and some of them are working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs to make ends meet.
Right. And all of that can create a level of distrust. And I think that, you know, uh, and this is just my personal opinion. You know, I've kind of thought about, you know, which is better, the draft or the volunteer service. And, you know,
Hmm.
for me, you know, when I think of draft, you know, I think that's something that's mandatory. Where, you know, when I think of the volunteer service, which that's the veteran I am. I volunteered to be in the Marine Corps. You know, that relies on the citizens choosing to enlist. You know,
Hmm.
the U.S. We've used the volunteer service since '73, and you know, to me, we still tout that we have the greatest forces that the world's ever known, and I think that's because people join willingly. You know, the volunteer service member are motivated by you know career aspirations or educational benefits or sense of duty, and volunteers you know can negotiate their contracts, their branch of service, and you know their job specialization before signing. You know, when you get drafted, they just tell you, hey, you're coming to fight a war, and you don't know
Hmm.
what you're going to do. And so imagine what kind of motivation am I going to have when I'm being forced to do something? I mean, just
And you
think
know,
if your manager forces you to do something at work, your attitude is usually not, you know, chipper going in there skipping. Where if you've been asked, do you want to volunteer to do this project at work?
right, right. And really, I'm thinking that this is a conversation that is forcing America to ask bigger questions. Like, what does service even look like today? Because when you really think about it, David, not everybody serves by carrying a weapon. You know, uh, some people are teaching, some um, uh, are in the medical industry where they are healing communities and healing the body. Uh, some are even, like we said earlier, rebuilding the neighborhoods after storms. So all of this is community. You have to think about mental health. You got to think about care for the elders. You got to think about building infrastructure and stuff like that. And that is really service too. And so
Yeah.
maybe, just maybe, America eventually. needs a broader national service model instead of outdated assumptions tied only to military registration. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
It definitely needs to be, some conversations held on this, and do it at your dinner table.
Right.
Talk to uh, your coworkers on breaks about some of these things, because we get an opportunity, in November to send folks to represent us, and some of these things that we're talking about and been talking about on this show the last few episodes, we can fix in November. So definitely start having these conversations now,
you
so that
you are absolutely correct.
you know
You're
so
absolutely correct.
so that we keep it on the burner. But I digress. Go ahead, brother.
And that's no problem. And you said something very powerful, because uh, things can change in November. And really, I just got a text message from one of the political candidates that's running in the state of Alabama. And I had to text them back and let them know that I was on the radio, so I could text. And they wanted to know. Catch this, they wanted to know, how does CWA feel about the data centers? What is the union's position, I should say, about the data centers and all of this stuff that is going on? And you know what, David, that is the key to making sure the labor agenda is tied into legislation. So, after the show and I get through doing what I need to do, I'm going to definitely make sure I send something that is official.
Right. And it's very tricky. I can tell you, in my experience, especially working with area labor federations, this this topic that with the data centers, it affects us, with AI,
Mm-hmm.
and replacing people working. So sometimes those things are a negative. But then you'll
Mm-hmm.
have other unions that you know are building those facilities, that union workers are building those things. So
Yes.
it's one of those healthy conversations that we're going to have to, as labor organizations, come together across all trades to find out
Mm-hmm.
a way to move this forward that benefits all, because it's not just a worker issue, it also will affect communities, because there's massive amounts of infrastructure and water that it will, end up using those resources that will punish the folks that are already in those areas. So that is a very complex issue that I definitely, we definitely need to get some have some conversations with leadership to say, hey, where are we at on this? And if we have to, when we come together as unions, whether it be locally or nationally, we got to have that conversation to say, hey, what is labor's position on this?
Yes, and that was the main thing, that when they texted me, they said that we CWA may have a different take on it than other AFL-CIO construct organizations, and that is very true, because we have to look at everything. But David, I think that our position, or I think this is, let me just say this. This is me thinking about this situation. We have to think about everybody when we are talking about this. And I know we've kind of diverted off of our subject, but we'll come back to it in just a minute, because it could be a win-win situation if we have a community agreement, a community benefits agreement, that certain things will take place when data centers start being built. And one of those situations that we need to be looking into, and you already said this, was the amount of water that they are using. Now, when you look at the data centers, um, they want to use, or they are using currently in some areas, water used for drinking. You don't need, get you some Valley Creek or Village Creek water,
Right.
or a reclamation water, rainwater or something that you collect on your property or something like that. So those things can be worked out if we just take the time and include. It has to be an inclusive conversation.
Yes,
Go ahead.
and I think that's how we need to approach this. It needs to be a very inclusive conversation that involves everybody that plays a part. So I think that's the first step to getting a hold on this, because we can't leave it to the corporations to make these decisions, because they don't care about any of that. They don't care about infrastructure. They don't care about the impacts on the environment. They don't care about how many jobs is going to be cut from it. At the end of the day, it's about profits. And so, the people have to, beat out the profits. And that's where, having those conversations, bringing that stuff to the forefront, we can develop and mobilize around a plan that benefits everybody.
Right. And that's just reality.
Yeah.
That's reality. I mean, fresh 101, reality 101 when it comes to the data centers. And that brings me, and I'm going right back to what we're talking about the military situation. Uh, with modern day citizenship, it is more complex than the old systems that we acknowledge in the military. And another thing that keeps bothering people when it comes to the government is that government systems modernize technology quickly, but then justice moves slowly, and that's what creates frustration also. And I know that people are frustrated right now with the current administration about how things have moved so swiftly in the last year and a half. People have lost jobs left and right, but when certain organizations, marginalized communities, confronted or asked for things, they told them this is not the time. Let me
Right.
digress
Well,
right there.
and and
So,
I think you're absolutely right. And the thing is, I used to ask myself, do I think that are the younger generations like losing faith in these institutions? And
mhm,
I can tell you that the young people I know, they can spot hypocrisy fast. Like
yes,
they are not playing around. They are very sharp, and they're not afraid to call out hypocrisy.
right. Especially when equality and equity becomes selective depending on the situation.
Right. And either mean equality constantly or stop using it. I mean, like I said, my thing is either be for equality or stop using it as a slogan. I'm tired of folks using it as a punchline or a campaign when they don't practice it in their own lives.
I remember one time when I was working at Bell South, one of the managers had what we call that, a stand up meeting, and he stated this right here. I don't just want y'all to talk about it. I just want you to be about it. So you're right. We we
Be
got
careful what you ask for. You might not
to.
want me to be about it, if because I don't think the code of business conduct wants me to be about it.
and the other thing, David, that I'm looking at is that the working class communities are exhausted from carrying burdens created by political leadership over and over and over again.
Well, and you said something there, because in my opinion, leadership should never ask for sacrifice that they conveniently avoid themselves. So, for me, at the end of the day, fairness matters. If a sacrifice is required, then honesty should be shared, and the responsibility should matter too. I can tell you, working people are tired of carrying unequal burdens while others profit from this corrupt system.
And let's go ahead and just say this right here, because we don't want nobody thinking that this was an attack on military service, but it wasn't. It was simply about asking honest questions. When systems modernize, convenience but not justice, people notice this. And when burdens fall unevenly, people notice this. And when equality is celebrated in words but applied inconsistently in practice, people notice this. And America must decide, do we want convenience or do we want consistency, tradition or do we want truth? And that's what it boils down to. And so we've got to keep building power, defending rights, and asking the questions others are afraid to ask. And so I want to digress on this one right here, and we'll go to the our next segment just shortly. Let me go ahead and throw this commercial break in here. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected, share your thoughts, and join the conversation. And you know what time it is now. It is now time for the Marshall Minute.
Errol, I think I'm gonna get in trouble. I think that was Claude's theme song. Claude, if you're listening today, don't go up to the station and get us at the end again and be like, "That's my song." But we are one. We are one. And good morning, family, and welcome to the Marshall Minute. And I know we just discussed, the Memorial Day and how important the month of May is, but May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And I wanted to take time on this minute to talk about that very subject. Every May, Mental Health Awareness Month encourages us to reflect on what it means to care for our emotional well-being. And since its beginnings back in 1949, it has grown into a powerful reminder that mental health is something we all share, not just a concern for a few, but a universal part of being human. This year's theme is More Good Days Together, which shifts me to the focus forward, which shifts me to focus towards something simple yet meaningful. Let's increase the number of days that we feel manageable, and we feel fulfilling or joyful. A good day, doesn't look the same for everyone. For some, it might mean completing daily tasks. For others, it might be finding a moment of peace or connection. The idea is not perfection, but progress, recognizing and valuing small wins. Just as important as the emphasis on togetherness, mental health is shaped not only by individual habits, but by also, our relationships, our communities, and our support systems. While, each person's journey is unique, no one is meant to navigate this alone. So let's redefine what a good day means. We often picture a good day as productive and stress-free. But in reality, a good day can simply mean coping a little better than the day before. It might involve showing up, trying again, or taking care of yourself, in a small way. You may think of well-being, I don't know, you may need to think about well-being like the weather. Some days are bright and energetic, and then others are heavy and or uncertain. A good day isn't about forcing sunshine. It's about having the tools and support to handle whatever weather comes your way. So letting go of rigid expectations allow more days to feel like they count, and they can shift what can be deeply healing. but we also need to care for the whole self. Mental
Mm-hmm.
health, touches every part of life. It touches our thoughts, our bodies, our relationships, and environments. Supporting it means caring for the whole self, not just one of those pieces. And this might include, emotional care, like, expressing feelings or talking to someone you trust. Physical care, such as, getting rest, eating well, and moving your body. Social care, by building connections and setting boundaries. Mental care, like, practicing mindfulness or learning new coping skills. And then environmental care, by creating spaces that feel safe and supportive. These
Mm-hmm.
actions don't need to be big to matter. Small, consistent efforts, like stepping outside for fresh air or taking a few quiet minutes, can build resilience over time. You know, caring for yourself doesn't, caring for yourself isn't indulgent. It's what allows you to function and support others more effectively. And while personal habits are important, mental health is also shaped by the world around us. Supportive relationships, accessible resources, and open conversations like we've had today all contribute to well being. I like to imagine mental health as a shared journey when people check in on one another and listen without judgment and offer support. The path becomes easier for everyone. And even simple gestures, a kind message, a moment of presence can have a real meaningful impact. Now, equally important is being open to receiving support. I can't say this enough. Needing help is not a weakness.
You're
It
right.
is a part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, you don't need to be a mental health professional to check in on someone. You know, so definitely check on folks, ask the conversation, have conversations with folks, ask them how they're doing, because a caring conversation can open the door to support and healing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, what are some ways for us to get started? Well, first thing, take a moment to breathe, because even small actions like pausing to focus on breathing can reduce your anxiety and improve your mood. Mindfulness and meditation are also powerful tools for mental health. And next, you need to recognize signs, because mental health challenges do not all look the same. For some adults, signs may include extreme mood swings, withdrawals, or changes in sleep. In children, that might look like nightmares or increased tantrums or changes in school performance. But early recognition is key. And then lastly, reach out. You never know who might be struggling quietly. A simple "how are you" can mean the world to someone. Don't wait for someone to ask for help, because at the end of the day, there's no single approach to improving mental health. What works for one might not work for the other. And that's okay, because the process is often about exploration and trying different strategies and adjusting along the way. Some people benefit from therapy or medication, while others find support in community, creativity, or lifestyle changes. Many use a combination of all those things, but the key is to start small. Stay curious about what helps and be patient with yourself. Progress doesn't have to be dramatic to be meaningful. If your days feel slightly more manageable, connected, or hopeful, that's progress. So, more good days together is not about eliminating hard days. The challenges are part of life, and
Mm-hmm.
instead, it's about recognizing that better days are possible and that we can help create them through compassion, support, and small intentional steps. And when we broaden our definition of what a good day looks like, we care for ourselves holistically, we and lean on one another, those good days can become more and more frequent. And when those good days are shared, they become even more meaningful. So until next time, this has been the Marshall Minute. where living well is the greatest act of love. Back to you, Errol.
Well, David, I didn't play your theme music, Clark's theme music, because I want to talk about something right here, because what you just talked about was very powerful. Uh, and honestly, what you just described speaks something that many people are silently carrying with right now, and that's exhaustion. And and I, as you would think, as you were bringing this segment to us, I was thinking about this right here, that rest is resistance. Um, uh, People are exhausted, not just with physical exhaustion, but they're exhausted emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and flat out, just like we said earlier, people are just tired. They're tired from struggling, they're tired from surviving, they're tired from carrying pressure every single day, while the world keeps demanding more and more and more and more from them. And sometimes, and I gotta bring it on in, sometimes even in movements, in workplaces and families, and even activism itself, people begin believing they must constantly produce, constantly fight, constantly give, without ever stopping to heal. But I've been learning over these something deeply important, and I hopefully this will help everyone that's listening in the audience, is that rest is not laziness. It's not laziness. Rest is not weakness, and rest should not be viewed as a guilt. Sometimes rest itself becomes resistance, and that's what we have to make sure of, that we are taking care of ourselves. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, and we're always pouring into other individuals, then we're eventually not going to be any good for anyone else. And that's why in my upcoming book that will be coming out in August, Unweary, that is the whole chapter that I really talk about, that's making sure that we get our rest, that rest is resistance, because healing matters too. We always are talking about struggling, how systems often condition people to believe in their worth, and it's tied only to productivity, struggle, and sacrifice. But healing matters as well. And I
Okay,
digress right
and
here.
no, and you said something. I implore you to try to use your cell phone if you don't give it a full charge. The next day it's going to cut off on you. You got to
Right.
charge that phone all night if you want to get the maximum performance out of it. So you said something about rest, and that seems like something small and minute, but it is very important. We got to charge those batteries because the fight is real. I mean, the fight is real on every level, whether it would be, civil rights, human rights, workers' rights. I mean, we're constantly in that battle, and you have to get the proper rest in order to get up and be your best version of yourself to fight that battle. So I totally agree with you on that, and I'm looking forward to your book and exploring all the different things you're gonna hit in that book, because I'm sure we could probably do a plethora of shows on some of those topics.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. I don't know if our producer will allow us to, but
Well, hey,
but hey, but
that's
on
another
days like
battle.
this, we can, yeah,
Yeah,
on days like this, we could get away with.
yeah, you're the producer today, Errol.
All right, you're listening to KYOK 1140 AM in the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org and pressing the listen live option. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at CWA National Human Rights to stay connected. Share your thoughts and join the conversation. All right, David, let's go ahead and get right on into this one right here. Unpaid labor, the truth about self-checkout. And I know we've tried to talk about this and get on it and with everybody on the panel, and it seems as if we always run out of time, but let's see if we can get into it today with just the two of us. And I know we're getting down to the last 10 minutes of the show, and I know how it is. So let's talk about this right here, because I think one thing that about corporate America is that they're always packaging something as innovation, when a lot of times it's really about reducing labor costs. And one of the biggest examples of that over the last 20 years has been self-checkout. Now, originally, self-checkout systems started showing up heavily around the 1980s and 1990s, and retailers, what they claim, it would improve convenience and modernize the stores and speed up shopping. But workers and unions during this time, because I was a member of the retail industry at that time, they warned early on that this wasn't just about convenience. This was about reducing staff, cutting labor costs, and shifting more work onto consumers. And then, lo and behold, when COVID happened, corporations really accelerated the model. You had fewer cashiers, more automation, skeleton crews, one exhausted employee supervising 10 or 12 checkout stations at one time. And we see this every time. Well, other people see this, because I don't shop at that Wiley World, but we see this. And customers are being told, or were being told, that this is the future. But now, after years of frustration, theft issues, overwhelmed workers, customers basically doing unpaid labor, many corporations are quietly scaling portions of this this invention, if you will. They're scaling it back. The large box stores, they're scaling it back because the system isn't working the way they thought it would. And so that's what we got to talk about this morning. But because this is not just about scanning grocers, this is about labor rights. It's about worker dignity, about corporate priorities. And this is what happens when companies remove human beings from the equation. And David, I know I done went on just a little bit strong this morning, and I'm sorry, but you're taking the humanness out of the store, the human compassion, all of it, the human touch, the human emotions out of shopping. When it comes to that, you're taking these jobs away. And I'm sorry. Go ahead,
no,
David.
no. For me, I'm gonna be honest with you. I avoid the self checkout like it owes me money.
Completely.
I walk in there and I suddenly forget how to scan everything. I mean,
Immediately
yeah,
helpless.
yeah. I'm like, unexpected item in the bag in there. Well, hey, it sounds like you got a problem then, because I might like to steal. I mean, you done gave me you mentioned theft earlier. Back in the day, I used to move tags around. I'm like, this is just making it more convenient.
And guess what, Dave? And that machine always talks to you like you committed a crime.
Right. And now suddenly, I'm standing there trying to buy toothpaste and bananas while the machine is accusing me of being a thief.
And then you got that exhausted worker standing up there at the front, running between 5 to 20 registers, trying to help everybody. And go. All right.
And ain't nothing efficient about that. That to me is chaos. And customers, we're frustrated too, because nobody asked to become an unpaid cashier. At the end of the day, that's corporations, greed. They're just being greedy.
And you know what? This is exactly why labor rights conversations matter, because workers saw this coming years ago. Retail workers, union workers, frontline workers. And I told you that one of my first job, official job, when I was a teenager, was working at a supermarket. a supermarket called Food World in Fairfield, Alabama. That's where I got my start. I was and immediately I joined the retail workers union when I went to work at Food World, and they warned corporations that you cannot keep cutting staff and expect service to improve. But because of corporate America has been trying to eliminate as many frontline workers as possible for decades, because labor costs money, because benefits cost money, healthcare costs money, pensions cost money, and I said pensions, but let's think about it. There are a lot of corporations that do not have pensions now, that you have to just give in a 401k, and you got to make it out the best way you can.
Right.
So corporations looked at self-checkout and saw dollar signs, but now consumers are experiencing the downside, the long lines, the broken machines, the no customer service. What else can go wrong in there? Frustrated workers and stores losing money through theft.
Well, and the worker always carries the burdens, because when the machines fail, workers deal with it. If customers get angry, workers deal with it. If theft increases, workers deal with it. If staffing shortages happen, workers deal with it. And meanwhile, executives are still collecting bonuses. And that's the bigger issue. America keeps trying to automate human interaction completely out of the workplace. And let me be clear, I'm not saying technology is bad and innovation is bad. But when technology is only used to maximize profit while workers suffer and customers receive worse service, you got to ask, who is this benefiting? Because somehow the customer became the cashier, the bagger, the security scanner, and quality control. But the prices still went up.
Ain't saved us not one thin dime. You hear me?
Right. I mean,
and this isn't just retail anymore. This is happening everywhere. Airports, banks, hotels, fast food, call centers, corporations everywhere are really trying to figure out how much labor can we remove before people push back. And unions matter in these conversations, because somebody has to advocate for the workers before corporations eliminate entire job classifications. But somebody also has to advocate for dignity, because people deserve jobs, people deserve interactions, people deserve customer service, people deserve to not feel like disposable parts inside a machine. And doggone it, if I have worked all day, I'm not coming in here getting my groceries off of the shelf and then got to go up here and check myself out. No, I will not do.
I'm right there with you, brother. Right there with you. Well, hey, do you want to say this for the next show? I know we're running low.
Yeah, I think we done ran out of time.
We done ran out of time.
And you know what? I think when everybody else gets back, they're gonna want a piece of this, and then we'll have to pick this back up. Definitely. But I'm sorry that we just went in on it. Let me go ahead and close this out. The Communication Workers of America invites you to the 2026 National Human Rights Conference, happening August 16th through 19th in Atlanta. Join union leaders and activists from across the country as we come together to build power, advance justice, and fight for workers' rights. This year's conference will be held in the beautiful Western Peachtree Plaza, located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. Go to cwahumanrights.com to register. Don't miss this opportunity to connect, learn, and organize for a stronger, more just future. We'll see you in Atlanta. An hour is not long enough to be with you, and a week is too long to be away from you. You've been tuned into the CWA Human Rights Hour Power broadcast. I hope something you heard today has inspired you to take action toward creating positive change in the world. Every person has the power to make a difference, no matter how small, and by working together, we can create a world where human rights are respected and valued. So I encourage each of you in the listening audience to reflect on your role in promoting human rights to effect change in your communities and beyond. Know that you're not alone in your quest for a more just and equitable world. When faced with injustice, it can be easy to lose hope and give up. But remember, justice may be slow like the truth, but when it finally comes, it will stand. Until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here on kyokradio.org. We'll see you next week.